The new year is coming, so let me ask you something. Are your goals the same ones you made last year and maybe the year before that? If you're a midlife woman navigating menopause, stubborn weight gain, bone loss, and low energy, starting over every January isn't the problem. The plan is. Faster Whey isn't a quick fix or a crash diet. It's a lifestyle built for the menopausal body, one that needs protein to protect muscle, strength training to support bone density, and smart nutrition to keep your metabolism working with you, not against you. Because this isn't about looking good in a dress for one event. It's about staying strong, mobile, and independent for decades to come. I'm not coaching you for your 40s. I'm coaching you so you're not in a nursing home at 80. If this is the year you stop chasing skinny and start building strength for life, welcome to Faster Whey. Check the show notes for more details. Health, wellness, fitness, and everything in between. We're removing the taboo from what really matters in midlife. I'm your host, Michele Folan, and this is Asking for a Friend. Do you really know where your meat is coming from? What do those labels actually mean, and why are we still being misled at the grocery store? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the modern meat industry with Cloe Parker, the young CEO of Parker Pastures, a regenerative ranching operation producing truly grass-fed, grass-finished, nutrient-dense meat. Here's the hard truth. 97% of beef in U.S. stores come from feedlots, and up to 85% of grass-fed beef is imported. Yes, yet it still is labeled product of the USA. No wonder consumers are confused. Cloe breaks down what's actually happening behind the scenes in meat production, why feedlot beef can harm the body, what labels really mean, and how to find meat that heals instead of inflames. And her own story of stepping into leadership after losing her mom and taking over the family ranch is one to be heard. If you want to make smarter choices for your health, your hormones, and your longevity, this episode is a must listen. Cloe Parker, welcome to Asking for a Friend.
Thank you so much for having me on. And that was a great intro. Really, I think we're going to cover all of that and really just dig into kind of the dirty secrets of our food industry.
Yeah, none of this is surprising to me. We all know that there's a lot of mislabeling of products and where we often get misled. But I do want to say, Cloe Parker, you are the youngest guest I have ever had on the podcast. I think maybe 30s, 40s, maybe the youngest. So kudos to you for being on the show.
Wow, thank you. That's such an honor.
Yeah. And, speaking of youth, you're incredibly young to be running a regenerative ranching operation. Can you share your personal story, like where you grew up, your family legacy, and then about losing your mom and how that influenced your decision to step in and lead your family business?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was like 5 or 6, my parents started Parker Pastures. And when they started, it was simply to provide me and my younger brothers with nutrient-dense, high-quality meat raised in a way that was healing to the land. And that they saw that there was such a demand for other families to have that same access. And so in the beginning, we had all the things like chickens and pigs and cows and milk cows and like everything you could kind of think of. And like all growing up, I've always known that I wanted to be in agriculture, and that's like just a huge passion of mine. And it's just so fulfilling and challenging. And so kind of just growing up in an agriculture family, we also have Parker Pastures, our meat company. And so it was just kind of all part of growing up. And then when after I graduated high school, I had to get out of my very small town, and I went and worked on some other ranches and just kind of gaining some other experience. And then my mom was diagnosed with cancer and immediately came back because I was like, I don't know what else to do and I need to help my family. And so while my mom was going through treatment, I was just kind of handling all of the business aspects. And the more that I kind of just stepped into that role, the more I just felt like this is a huge calling upon my life. This is like one of the reasons God has me on this planet. And so right before I turned 20, I officially took over. And then a few months later, my mom went to heaven. And so that really just like, that was so challenging. And it really just was like, I realized how this was not at all about me. It was about continuing to provide families with good, clean meat. Because after watching my mom just go through cancer and learning more about our food system and our medical system and like all of it, I was like, there's so much darkness in this. So A, I want to expose the darkness, and B, I want to provide something that I know I can feel good about eating to other families. And so, yeah, now that's what we do today. I work with a select few highly vetted farms and ranches, and we provide grass-fed, grass-finished beef, bison, lamb, pasture-raised chicken, and then pasture-raised turkey. And yeah, we ship it boxes of meat all across the country. And I mean, it's truly an honor to provide people with good, clean food and to carry on my mom's legacy.
Well, I love your story. And first of all, I'm truly, truly sorry about the loss of your mom. That had to be incredibly difficult at such a young age, and to be thrown into a family business. Now, are you running this solely by yourself? Do you have any help from anyone else in your family?
It's mainly me, and then I have an incredible team around me where I would have not be able to do any of this without them.
Okay. Well, good for you. I'm really curious though, what did those early days look like for you emotionally, practically, and as a woman? Let's be frank, you're stepping into a traditionally male dominated industry.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. But I also, maybe it's just who I've been around. And I think part of it is just the industry. I feel like I've been very blessed with, had a lot of encouragement and a lot of people who have just like built me up and just gone out of their way to help me in ways that I truly didn't expect or know was going to happen. And I mean, building a business, no matter what it is really hard, and it's just challenging. And you're just kind of like building a ship while learning how to drive the ship.
Yeah.
And then also, like just losing my mom, of the grief of all of that. It was so much. And it really refined me into like, okay, why am I doing this? Because if I'm doing this for money, well, that's not going to last very long. And if I'm doing this for my own fame or gain, like that's not going to last very long. And it just became so clear that this is not about me. Like, I just want families to have clean meat. Like, we should have food on our table that heals us, not poisons and harms us. And just, it didn't take long for that to just become so clear. And that is like the reason I keep going. So it's such an honor to be providing that for people.
Yeah. And you already have a mission statement, whether you realize that or not. Your mission statement is, to provide families, the best possible and healthiest meat. So I love that. And then where is Parker Pastures located exactly? What does home mean to you?
Yeah, we're headquarters is in the mountains of Colorado, and then kind of have a few different ranches and farms, like I said, that I work with. So it's kind of a little all over, but that's where I'm based.
Okay, got it. And then walk us through a typical day for you. For those of us that have only seen ranching on Yellowstone, what does running a regenerative ranch actually look like?
In reality, it actually looks like a lot of time on the computer. I've kind of had to step away from ranch related things to just be on the business side. And so like, it kind of looks like a lot of just meetings and computer stuff and emails and all of that. And then winter, things kind of do slow down. And whenever I'm able to, like, I love to move cows. I have a milk cow. And so I have to have my hands in some kind of agriculture, but it does look like a lot of just like kind of business stuff, just as running a business, which is something I did not expect with all of this. But it's a sacrifice that I would make again and again.
You said you've built like a co-op of like-minded ranchers. How did that come about? And I'm really wanting to know what criteria you use to decide who joins your network.
Yeah, I realized I can't do everything well, but there's people who can do. I believe we all have like unique giftings and things. And so it's like working with the best of the best who do it well. And so, yeah, honestly, most of these are just kind of like God connections and things that just came forward. And there's just a very few ranches and farms that we work with. And I think the biggest thing is it's all based on my mom's standards. And my mom had really high standards. And that's the same thing that I uphold today. So it's like, okay, everything is grass fed and grass finished. No, there's no pesticides being sprayed on anything. No, there's no antibiotics. The animals are living a life that they were designed to live. Like cows are designed to be on pasture eating grass. So are chickens. And also just like meat that I want to eat and I feel comfortable eating and I feel good eating. Because like if I won't eat it, then I don't want to provide that to somebody else. And like grocery store meat, like I don't know any brands that I can stand for because I don't feel comfortable eating any of that. So I'm not going to recommend that. And so those are just kind of some of our standards and things that we look for. And also just like, okay, does it taste really good? Does it have a lot of flavor? Because that usually means it has a lot of nutrients and yeah, just like looks and smells and tastes like meat is supposed to.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure we all know what meat is supposed to smell like and taste like because most of us, like me, get it at the grocery store. So I'm going to take a quick break here, Cloe. But when we get back, I do want to talk about regenerative ranching and get into this whole grass-fed, grass-finished thing. I want to talk about peptides for a moment. Yes, weight loss peptides are everywhere right now. And when used correctly, they're very effective and backed by years of clinical data. But peptides are not just about weight loss. There are peptides that support metabolic health, energy, muscle, your sleep, skin, hair, and long-term healthy aging, the things midlife women are actually struggling with. That's why I partnered with a trusted telemedicine resource. My clients were asking for more because eating well and lifting heavy sometimes still isn't enough in midlife. LEMD is physician-led, medically supervised, and uses an FDA-certified compounding pharmacy. No internet hacks, no self-prescribing, no guessing. This isn't about chasing a smaller body. It's about preserving muscle, protecting your metabolism, and supporting the body you want to live in for the next 20 to 30 years. If you want real options, not trends, you can learn more through the link in the show notes. All right, we're back. So I did want to hit on this because I know what you do is very different. And you touched a little bit on regenerative ranching, but explain exactly what regenerative ranching is. And then I want to dig into grass-fed versus grass-finished.
That's a great question. And honestly, in my experience, depending on who you ask that question to, there's a lot of different answers. But the thing that I keep coming back to is like, okay, what is the original design of like, okay, cows should be on grass, eating grass. And also like, are we healing or harming the land? And it's like, okay, if we're spraying massive amounts of chemicals and just like stripping the land, then like, no, that's not regenerating it. That's not caring for it well. It's not stewarding it well. Versus if we are like we're doing is like we're taking these grazing animals that are designed to graze grass and we're allowing them to graze across the landscape and then allowing that grass to regrow and recover, which it needs to do. And then they'll graze it again. And it's like that natural cycle. And so, yeah, it's just like stewarding the land well, which then creates this byproduct of super flavorful, nutrient dense meat.
Do we have to worry then about glyphosate being sprayed on the food source of the cows that we're eating right now?
Yes, mostly with corn, because most beef is fed corn, which is highly filled with, like they just spray it with a lot of things, including glyphosate. And so, yeah, like corn-fed beef, I've seen different studies and it's like super high in glyphosate and heavy metals and different things like that because of what the cattle are eating, mostly because of the corn and how it's grown.
Okay. Ugh. All right. Now, when something is labeled grass-fed, what is the standard for grass-fed?
Yeah, this one is kind of crazy. So in 2016, the USDA quit regulating the term grass-fed. And so there's actually no regulations around it. Usually, roughly, it means like an animal ate, like a cow, let's say, ate grass some point of his or her life. But like I said, there's no regulations, so it's really hard to tell. The term grass finished, again, not regulated, but generally means that an animal ate grass at the end of its life, which is good because most of them eat corn or grain at the end of their life. But with both those terms, it's like they're kind of vague and it's hard to tell. And so it's like ideally looking for something that is grass-fed, grass-finished, or 100% lifetime grazed, or just like anything where it's like, okay, that animal actually spent his entire life on pasture eating grass.
Okay. So your beef is labeled grass-fed and grass-finished then, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So that what that means is since that the day that a baby is born until it is harvested from meat, it is eating grass. It's eating a diversity of different grass plants its entire life, which is how it was designed to be. And then it converts that into meat.
Okay. Would you explain to the audience what a conventional feedlot is?
A feedlot is also known as a CAFO, which is usually a very dense area where they put a lot of cattle in pens, and then they are fed a ration, usually high in corn, maybe a little bit of hay, and some other things. And this allows the animals to gain weight really, really fast. It came about, I think, after World War II, when we had all this abundance of grain. I was like, okay, well, what are we going to do with it? And then somebody had the idea of like, well, let's feed it to cows. And so like a feedlot is usually for cattle or sheep or bison. And then for pork and chicken, it's a little bit worse. They're in a barn, don't see the light of day. There's a lot of animals packed in a like not very much space. And so that's kind of what it looks like for pork or chicken.
And then just in terms of animal welfare, with what you do, your cattle is all outside all the time, or are they ever inside? How does that work? Because I have no clue.
It's a great question. They are outside their entire lives. Animals are really, really hardy, and especially like cattle, like they can stand all of the different weathers and all of that. So they're outside their entire life, just on pasture.
All right. My husband and I were talking about this last night, and he said that, and something he read was that there's like 4 major slaughter companies in the country. And basically, they have a monopoly on slaughter. And with that comes probably cost fixing. So, do you know anything about that? Like in terms of the pricing of meat and how that's like these conglomerates who I hear aren't even usually owned by Americans are really responsible for the majority of the meat that we get in our grocery stores?
Unfortunately, it is very true. Over 80% of beef is, and I think it's even worse with chicken and pork, and it is controlled by one of these 4 companies. I think 2 are American owned and 2 are out of this country. And yeah, that's one of the things that I like probably need to learn more about, but it's also so awful that I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been different like allegations that they are price fixing. But I think more so it's like if 85% of our beef is controlled by 4 companies, then like what does that mean? It's like our food system is very unstable if something was to happen to those. And it's also like easily to control a food system if 4 companies are in control of it. And so beef is one of the kind of last standing meat industries that is not fully controlled by like one of these companies. There's still a small percentage. And that's why I think it's so important that we continue just supporting the people and anyone on the ground who is small family farms and ranches, because I saw something recently where it's like there's only 600 ranches still around. And I think it's less than 2% of our population grows food or is in agriculture. And so, yeah, like who grows our food and how it's being grown is a really big deal. And it's like, I personally don't want I don't want to have food that is grown by big corporations. Like, I want to know who's growing it. I want to be able to know that it's grown in a way that I feel good about and there's not some like mystery stuff in it.
Okay, so in my research that I did, it said that 85% of grass fed, and I'm saying grass fed in air quotes, beef is imported, yet it's labeled product of the USA. How in God's name is that even allowed?
Yeah. So if meat is packaged in the US, it can be labeled as product of the US, even if it wasn't raised in the US. I do believe they're going to start like, I don't know, they're going to start managing this a little bit more in 2026, where it's like people won't be allowed to get away with this. But as of right now, that is what happens.
So there seems to be a lot of loopholes and deceptive labeling practices that mislead consumers all the time. And I think this is why you and I are talking about this right now, because I really don't think people understand that that is what they're getting. And I am, heartened to hear that there may be some changes out there, but will any of that be like, what they're doing at these feedlots, environmentally, ethically, and nutritionally? Are there any changes that you know of on the horizon where we might expect something better, a better product?
I think it's really in the consumer's hand. It's like, however we vote, we all vote with our dollar of what food we want and how we want it grown. And so at the end of the day, it's such a grassroots thing where it's like, if there is the demand, which there's starting to be a big demand for like tallow or like tallow fries or just like all of this with like using tallow instead of seed products. Or there is starting to be even more and more interest for like grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And all those things. And that's all consumer driven. And so I think it's such a grassroots thing. So the more that the consumer wants that, the more that things are able to change. And like the people that I'm around, and it's very positive. It's like a lot of just like exciting stuff of just like food raised in a way that's just good food and it's just healthy. And that is really due to the demand for it. And so I think I hope that, and I think that just as demand increases, so will the people who will be providing and meeting that demand.
Yeah. And then when you and I first spoke, we talked a little bit about omegas and the omega ratios and how grain-fed beef flips them upside down. Will you address that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So omega-3 and omega-6 ratio is super, super important. And what happens when cattle are fed corn at the end of their life, or honestly at any point of their life, but it's usually at the end of their life before they're harvested, what it does is it completely elevates the omega-6 ratio, which is the quote unquote like bad fat. This is the one that's been linked to inflammation and like all kinds of different things. And what's crazy is it can be like 15 to 20 to I think even like 50 or like 50 to 1. So 50 omega-6s to 1 omega-3. And we want that as balanced as possible. And like our beef, we're very close to that balanced of like 1 to 1 or 1.2 to 1. And it's like very close kind of, I believe like wild caught salmon is like a very similar. And it's like we want that as balanced as possible. But with cattle eating a diet that they're not designed to, it actually kind of makes them obese and inflamed. And then we eat that, and that definitely affects our health.
This is kind of a wake-up call for all of us, because if the cattle are, have this out of balance ratio, we're going to have that too. If not just eating the cattle, but what we eat. If we're eating all that stuff, that's not going to help us at all, right?
No, not at all. And it's like that saying of like, you are what you eat, but you're also what you eat eats. And
then there was the other thing that I found that about contaminants, like my mycotoxins from moldy grain, glyphosate residues, or even heavy metal accumulation. How do these make their way into conventional beef?
It's mostly in feedlots and in that corn. How most corn is grown, it's about the size of California, the state of California each year is how much corn America grows. And it's a highly sprayed crop. I think there's over 1 billion pounds of pesticides sprayed in America for like crops or lawns or different things. And then the animal is eating that. And that completely just, it affects the animal. And like we were just talking about, that eventually affects us because then we're eating it.
If I were to buy meat that said organic, would that protect me at all against glyphosate?
Based on the like what they require for organic and if someone is actually following the laws, possibly, but they can also use other chemicals, even if they're more like quote unquote organic. And so I don't know, the more that I've just learned about labels, the less and less confident I am in them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm like, I would just encourage to ask a lot of questions and also like, what does it taste like? What does it like look like, smell like? So let's take beef, for example, of like most beef at the store, it's going to be a bright red color. And that is because of how it's packaged. Usually something called modified atmospheric packaging. And that takes carbon dioxide and other gases, and it is able to package it so that, because when meat is exposed to air, it oxidizes and usually turns brown. And so this kind of reverses it. So it turns this bright red. And beef is actually more of like good beef is like a ruby red color. And then the fat should be a yellow color, not a white color. Most beef you'll notice in stores is a white color. And that's because, again, when they're fed corn, it actually changes the color of the fat. And it makes it super white. And so we want beef that is a ruby red color and is like a yellow fat because that's due to the beta carotenes in the grass that the animals are eating. It kind of just changes this fat into a yellowish color. And so like those are some things that I would look for. And then also like just asking questions. That's why I personally recommend like going to like if there's a local farm or rancher in your area or ordering online to Parker Pastures where it's like you can ask all the questions too, because that just helps a lot versus like a label. You can't really ask questions when you're at the store.
All right. There are cost implications to buying beef from a rancher or a regenerative, farm like yours. And I think there's some trade-offs there. So, but we have to be honest. We got to call it out for what it is. It's going to be more expensive to buy better quality meat. So if I am trying to be a very discriminating buyer, would you opt to buy your meat from like your beef from a regenerative farm and then the rest maybe just try to source it the best you can from, grocery store and your local places? I mean, because it would be hard to buy everything from a regenerative ranch.
I would honestly recommend leaving beef on the last. I know mostly we've been talking about beef, but pork and chicken are actually ones that are way worse than beef, mostly because of how they're raised. And there's been like, I think Sustainable Dish has done some different studies, and like beef, even if it's feedlot beef, it's going to be better than processed foods. And it's usually like, okay, not ideal, but okay. But chicken and pork, definitely not. For one, it's dunked in a chlorine bath at processing, and that chicken can absorb up to 20% of that water, or it can be injected with water. And so like on packaging, look for anything that says usually a number and then percent retained water, and do not buy that because that is what is happening to that. Also chicken, like if they're in confinement, it is just like, there's just no health benefits to that chicken at all. Versus beef, most cattle actually do spend the most of their life on grass, and then the end of their life, they go into a feedlot a lot, and like that does affect the meat. but it's also going to be a cleaner meat because those animals, cattle do have 4 stomachs, and it's just going to be a little bit of a cleaner meat. So I would recommend, well, first it's like, okay, what really matters? And good food affects our health so much. And so it's like, I view it as an investment of like, okay, what am I going to invest in? And I want to invest in my health. Like, I want to feel well. I want to not have a bunch of medical bills down the line. Like, I want to feel well. And so it's like, I'm going to invest in good food. And then there is ways to do it cost effective. Usually like buying in bulk is a great option. Maybe that's buying a half or whole cow. Yeah, it's a lot of meat, but you can split it with friends or however that looks. But that's going to be the most economical way because you get everything for the same price per pound, and it's going to be the lowest price per pound. And yeah, I'd recommend poultry and pork.
Okay.
Getting those from sources that you can trust and vouch for. And then beef, like again, buying in bulk's a great option. And yeah, and just like it is a worthwhile investment.
All right, I went back up to chicken because God knows we eat a lot of chicken. And sometimes I can get air chilled chicken. Is that going to be better than the stuff that does not say air chilled?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So kind of the different ways that chicken is processed is it's either air chilled, which is ideal, or it's run through usually it's bleach, but they like put it in a chemical bath because it's high in E. coli, salmonella, and so they're trying to kill the contaminants, and that's usually why it's like pasture raised or something like that. You'll see air chilled, or sometimes it can be run through a bath that does not contain chemicals. And so usually if you're looking at grocery store and labels, air chilled is going to be most ideal because it's also going to be more affordable because they're charged chicken by the pound. And so if it's containing all this water weight, you're paying for the water weight.
Ah, okay. That's good to know. And I've been told by other people that the pork industry in itself is very dirty. Like the for processing and everything is just kind of gross. So I appreciate what you said about pork. Be very discriminating about where you're getting your pork. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, making sure it's like pasture raised and yeah, just kind of pasture raised or well, actually that. And then sometimes you can have it without corn or soy. That's a little harder to find, a little more pricey. But ideally, yeah, it's bare minimums like pasture raised. And then kind of from there, there's different things. But yeah, pork is definitely one of those ones that can be very gross.
I'm like, I have no pork in my house right now. So actually, we've got a pound of bacon, but I've been eating very, very little pork. Actually, in anticipation for this conversation, I'm like, I just can't pull the trigger on buying pork right now. So you've already tainted my whole shopping experience and what I'm buying at the grocery store. This is so funny. I do have a huge freezer in the basement that is typically empty. My husband bought this huge freezer chest, 4 years ago. And every once in a while, there might be a couple steaks in there that, he's vacuum packed or whatever. But we definitely have an opportunity to probably fill it up with some better meat than what we've been buying. I do want to know, Cloe, what is your biggest hope for the future of the meat packing industry, and what role do consumers play in creating that shift?
It's a great question. I mean, I really hope we just go back to like the way food is designed to be. And it's like, that is whole real foods. That is beef from a cow that ate grass, and just like really back to just like good foods. Because 60% of the average American diet's from processed foods. And there's just so many harmful things to that. And I think at the end of the day, it's all what we each choose to do. And I think also it's like food is such a gathering thing. It like brings us together. And so it's like, well, what if we fed people how we want to be fed? And it's like, I want to feed like, I want to be fed really good food. So the people I have around me, I'm going to feed them really good food. Like my Christmas gifts this year, well, it does help I have a meat company, but I'm literally giving everybody meat because it's like something that we all usually eat is meat, and it's such a good, useful gift, and it will be enjoyed, but I also know it'll like bring health to their life. And so, yeah, it's just like, how do we get back to just like beef from a cow that ate grass, or food grown in a garden, or carrots with still a little bit of dirt on them from a farmer's market, or just whatever that looks like. And I think that's a choice that we all get to vote on when we go and buy food.
Yeah. And, I try not to get too crazy, about my food in terms of, I can only worry about so much during my day. But there are some things that I always buy organic. Berries, apples. You can go to the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 13 or whatever, Clean 16, whatever. But they have the list that you can pull from, and that's helpful, right? So that you can start there. You can start by maybe buying air-chilled chicken, right? Knowing where your pork comes from. And then certainly I think there is a huge benefit to checking out Parker Pastures or a local rancher in your area. Go talk to them. Get online, do a search, find those people, because I think there's an opportunity here, not just about eating healthy, but also supporting family businesses. We all talk about shopping local, but we've got these family businesses that are out there trying to do things right, and I love what you're doing. I really do. And on that note, if I were to order products from you, how do you ship it? Because it's coming from Colorado to Cincinnati, Ohio. Tell me a little bit about that process.
It's a great question. Yeah, so everything is going to come in an insulated box, and all the meat will be frozen, and then we use dry ice to keep it frozen. Usually it's evaporated by the time it gets to you, and we just use UPS. So usually we ship earlier in the week, so it gets there and doesn't get there and sit overnight on the weekend, and usually will arrive within 2 to 3 days after we ship, and so super easy. And then plus, you don't even have to go to the store. You just get a box of meat just delivered to your door. Yeah, and it's frozen. And so it's just super, super easy is also kind of what we try to do as well, and just eliminate a lot of the variables to just make it really easy.
Right. And then I have a question for you, Chloe. This is more of a personal question. You're busy. You're a busy young woman. How do you find balance, and what is one of your self-care non-negotiables? What's something that you do for yourself every day?
The first one that comes to mind is I eat a lot of meat. I don't know why. all of our bodies are different, but I know I'm someone who needs a lot of protein. And so it's like, okay, if I get just some red meat in the day, and like, that's kind of my foundation, I know that I'm going to have better energy and just gonna feel better. And the other, like the biggest thing for me, is just my faith, and just this life is really short, and eternity is long, and I believe in Jesus, and so I know that because of that, there's a lot of things I'm called to steward and do. One of that is Parker Pastures, and there's been a lot of times that it almost could have crumbled, but supernaturally it didn't. And so I think my faith is really what keeps me solid, because also it can be a lot, and so that's something that helps me not go nuts. And I also know, like, if I eat a bunch of sugar or something like that, it's just not going to really help anything. So I think those are some of them.
Well, as a health coach of midlife women, I encourage them all to get at least 100 to 110 grams of protein a day. And, for some, it can be really hard, but you're lucky. You've got it right there, always available, and you've got the best in the world, I can only assume. All right, Cloe Parker, where can the listeners find Parker Pastures and order your products and learn more about your ranch and your mission?
parkerpastures.com. We have grass-fed beef, grass-fed bison, grass-fed lamb, pasture-raised chicken, and you can order all of that online. We have pretty much every option you could think of, and we will deliver it straight to your door. And then if you kind of want to hear more dirty secrets, and I've been recently going to grocery stores and kind of debunking labels. So Parker Pastures Grass-Fed on Instagram is kind of more education.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Oh, I'm going to check that out. I didn't know that. You know, I'm going to be on that as soon as we get off this call. Oh, Cloe Parker, this was really informative, super interesting, and I certainly wish you the best in your business.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you for listening. Please rate and review the podcast where you listen. And if you'd like to join the Asking for a Friend community, click on the link in the show notes to sign up for my weekly newsletter where I share midlife wellness and fitness tips, insights, my favorite finds, and recipes.